Jdogg, are you on the line here?
Hey Bart, yes.
How's it going? Well, I want to thank you for contacting me and obviously telling your side of the story. Do you want me to call you Jdogg or do you want me to call you by your name?
No, let's just go with Jason. In fact, this was the first stream I've been on. I think the
Sure.
TCH, I don't know, probably a dozen times. And
Sure.
this first one with the nickname Jdogg, it was kind of a joke at the beginning of the stream, and now it's kind of sticking and spiraling into some very other funny nicknames online that my friends keep screenshotting and sending to me. So
Right. So most people have seen this, but just to give you a little bit of backstory here, and then like I said, I'll get your side of it. There's this pot that went down a few weeks ago at TCH where Jdogg was in position and raised on the turn with a combo draw. He had 9-8 of hearts, and his opponent also had 9-8 too. So his opponent was open ended and called Jdogg's raise on the turn from out of position. This is Josh. And then you made the backdoor flush on the river, not a paired board, and then he jammed all in. And then there was sort of this discussion that went on. One of the things that you had said in the email is that you were actually slightly deeper than what I said in the video, which was 1800. And before we get into this too, I saw William in the live chat, who is the commentator. I kind of feel bad for William because I've went in and listened to all this audio, and William did talk over a lot of the stuff, but people don't realize that at least when I was doing TCH commentary, they didn't even have like audio. He might not even have had the audio in his ears. So he didn't really know what was going on, and he acknowledged that. And but basically, what ended up happening, Jdogg or Jason, is that you guys started talking. Now, obviously, you've got a big decision, right? Because now you made a backdoor flush, but this guy moved all in for over a pot size bet. You guys started talking, and then there was some discussion about whether or not you were going to show cards and whether or not each of you were going to show cards, right?
yeah, that's correct.
So, I mean, from what I saw on the video here, which was at in that live stream, it sort of started at 3 hours and 41 minutes and 26 seconds. And I'm going to play when they started talking here. And I tried to isolate it. And this is what sort of started it all.
What do you have? You made me a little bit nervous right now. A little bit. What do you have? Let me help you. That's too much work. If you show me your hands, I might consider to show.
I can't do that. I mean, you probably need, but I'll show one if you show. You want to pick one? Otherwise, I'm probably out. If you have a good hand, you probably.
Okay, so this is what I've heard here, Jdogg, and you can sort of, input your sort of side to it, because there was some discussion about who sort of initiated this, who initiated like the whole sort of showing of the cards, and Josh said like, you're kind of making me nervous. I don't know what you have, and then who mentioned first possibly showing cards?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And just before answering that too, just to point out, so I've played with Josh, I don't know, quite a number of times, maybe 10 times over the last, few months at TCH. I know him, I really like him, good guy, fun to play with. Um, so he puts me in this, interesting spot by by jamming. And so I had to think about it, and I have some rationale behind that. I mean, it's funny, everyone's saying, "Oh, you're such a nit." Like, I think if you look at my appearances on the stream, I'm usually the top or the second VPIP. Like, definitely not a nit, but whatever. Not what we're here to discuss. But knowing Josh and knowing our history together, and something he said. So if you look back, and I took a look at it, a number of times. At about 40 seconds into me thinking is when he first mentioned something, and he mentioned something along the lines of, a draw, and he had a draw too, which, made sense, right? I mean, when he bet 130 and I made it 500 and he called, I thought, okay, well, he probably has a draw. I have 8-9, so I'm kind of blocking 8-9, which was the only other draw than a heart. So, lots of things there. But at any rate, he brought it up. He mentioned something, and then he's the one. I never said anything about showing. I had no interest in talking about showing cards, but he was starting to offer up some information and talking a bit. And then he said, well, I think he said, I might consider showing if you want to show. And if you look at the audio or listen to the audio, I said, I can't do that. I said, I'll show one if you show one.
We did hear that. We did hear that part. We just played it.
And then I said, do you want to pick one? I said, otherwise I'm probably out. And another thing, and at one point when Lottie was talking over it, I actually mentioned twice. So I totally agree, 100%. When Josh first engaged in the discussion, he said, I might consider.
Right.
But I stated twice after that, twice, I'll show one if you show one. And then so when he started, and I said, do you want to see one? I spread my card, and he started touching them. I thought he was doing his little eeny, miny, moe thing. I thought he would pick a card and then say, flip that one. And that would give me another chance to clarify what I thought was an agreement, hey, fine, I'll show this, but you're showing one. And so, everyone's made these judgment calls having seen the cards, right? If you showed all this video and no one ever saw what cards I had or what cards he had and how it all went down, I think people might feel a little differently about it. I had no idea that, he had no heart, of course.
So, and this is one of the things I take exception with, and I'm going to play this in the live stream, and it's probably going to come back here too. I think this is coming through in the live stream here. So you clearly spread your cards out here, and he's sort of touching your cards. He's kind of touching your cards. Now, my question to you here is that, is there any difference between him picking a card and you turning it over, or you letting him turn over one of your cards? What's the difference?
No, Bart, no, I don't think there's a difference at all. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've been in these scenarios before. And in fact, I've been in these scenarios when either I'm all in or someone else is all in. And so, no, there's no difference at all whether he flips it or I flip it. We were sitting right next to each other. He wanted to flip it, fine. But my point is only that I didn't necessarily expect him. And if you watch the video carefully, as soon as he flipped, it kind of happened. He reached back over after saying, oh, I'm good for the stream, or, whatever he said. And he flipped back over. And as soon as he was touching it, as he was going to flip it, is when I started talking to say, hold on, hey, if you flip that, I'm going to see a card. And so, no, that's neither here nor there, whether it was me or him, but him taking a little more time to clarify, because he heard me say it twice, and other people
but here's
did as well.
the exception that I take with that. So now that you've acknowledged that, and I think you've also acknowledged that it didn't appear like he actually really knew that it was sort of what your understanding was of the whole situation, because all we've heard is that I would consider showing a card, not necessarily that I will show a card. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to play here, and I literally counted before the show 8 different times. And here's the things that I have exceptions with, is that when the floor started to come over, or when the controversy started to happen, this is the first one. So he says, to be honest, I only want to see both of them.
Truly, you guys should pay me for live stream. I'm always
Now you have to show. And I get to pick one. Okay, he can't flip one of my cards over, number one.
Do that.
He
Do
took
not touch somebody's card. Do that. Do not touch
He took one of my cards.
Do that. Do not touch somebody's card. Do not touch somebody's card.
I know. His hand's dead, or he shows me my cards.
He can't just touch my cards and flip them over. Then, number 4, he touched both my cards and then flipped them over. Then,
But you asked me to do that.
I did not ask you to do that, even though you guys were talking about it, and it's obvious that you spread the cards out, and you're saying that it doesn't matter right there.
I'm allowed to pick one of his cards, yeah? Hold on, I'm allowed to pick one of his cards, yeah?
I said that I would consider showing it, and now
I'm not finishing the hand until you tell me. I can flip one of his cards. He said we would both pick one, and then he said we would both pick one. So either his hand's dead now, so either his hand's dead now, or I pick a card. Either his hand is dead,
He can't touch my cards and flip it over. He can't touch my cards and flip it over. He's not allowed to flip one of my cards over. Jdogg, do you see the problem that I have here, especially with what you just sort of acknowledged, is that in my view, I don't think the floor really knew what was going on, and in my view here, you were sort of making it was sort of an unclear agreement, and then you were sort of making it look like, oh my God, Josh, he just flipped my card over. When in fact, like, you definitely gave him permission to flip your card over. We can all see that it was all spread out, and it didn't really seem clear to me that Josh really knew what was going on, and that he had agreed to turn his hand over. And the other thing too is that you have to also acknowledge that him turning your card over when he's already all in is not even in the same universe as you being able to see one of his cards when the action is on you.
Well, okay, that's fair in regards to his action was complete, right? So I certainly understand that. But one, okay, I feel like maybe he entered into a bad deal, but he also initiated it. He wanted to do it. But even that, I don't even think it's fair to say a bad deal. It is now because we can see what cards he has. So obviously it makes no sense, like knowing that he had 8-9 of clubs. I didn't know that at the time. And there's plenty of situations. And in fact, most often, having, I don't know, played this game for about 20 years now, most often when I'm in a spot where someone is talking about showing cards, someone is all in, and they're either trying to incentivize you to call or get you to fold. So in my mind, whether it's, you can say like it's bad, bad poker playing, that's fine. I had convinced myself, when he, just jams all in for about 1.34x, the pot, that he either had 4-5 of hearts or ace-x of hearts, because he had raised under the gun. I either put him on 4-5 of hearts or ace-x of hearts. So again, if nobody sees any of the cards and he had flipped one of mine, and then he thinks, oh, he does have a flush and he's holding ace, 4 of hearts, and he's like worried about me picking the ace of hearts and then folding because he wants to get max value. I understand your perspective. And look, let me say this too. What I want to defend here is the fact that I know Josh. I play at TCH twice a week. I certainly had no intention to try to angle him or anyone. Okay. I think I handled it really poorly after the fact. So I truly thought, and again, one of them is talked over and one of them's not. So you heard him say, I might consider. And I think you also hear me clearly say, I can't do that. I'll show one if you show one. So he should have been a little more careful before just grabbing a card and flipping it, that he understood the terms of the deal. So that's on him, not on me. However, from that point forward, he flips it. I get upset thinking, oh, now you're not going to let me. You're reneging on this deal. And at the time, I felt like it was because, oh, maybe he does have ace-x of hearts and he's worried if I flip the ace, I'm going to fold. So whatever. That was my thinking at the time. But seeing the cards just makes a huge difference.
But does seeing your card make here's the thing that I would take a step back on. I think this is the biggest issue that everyone has a problem with, is that I mean, it sounds to me too that we can come to a consensus that Josh didn't think that was the agreement, that it wasn't really all that clear. And what people are taking sort of issue with is that if the agreement wasn't really all that clear, then the information that's being given away by him seeing one of your cards, that's really no information. Whereas if you turn over one of his cards and the action is on you after he's already moved all in, it's just astronomically more information. So if the agreement is not clear, then wouldn't it have been probably proper to not turn over his card, that it's not equal?
So Bart, well, let me make a couple of points in response to what you just said. One, you've now admitted and stated 3 different times that the terms of the deal were not clear, probably because you can clearly hear me say in the audio, I'll show you one if you show one. So I think the burden is on him before he just grabs one of my cards and flips it, even though, yes, I was willing for him to do it, but him doing it sort of implies that he understands the terms of the deal, or he should have been really clear. Hey, I'm going to flip this, but like, whatever. He wasn't clear about it. So he grabbed my card before he was clear. So you're saying you're unclear. I felt very clear on the terms because I had stated twice, you show one, I'll show one. And you can't just say that just because his action is complete, that it's not relevant. Because if he's trying to be deceptive and then realizes, oh, I see a heart, he probably has another heart. I have the ace of heart, I have the nut flush. Then you could like flip all of this and say he was angling me then by not showing me. Now, what I will say is this: I did not angle Josh. I 100%, I had no ill intent. I got caught up in the moment, got really frustrated that I felt like he didn't hold up his end of the bargain. And because I was so frustrated in the moment, I will say from that point forward, I acted poorly. So looking back, I was really whiny about it. I don't like that. I regret that. I apologize for that. And in fact, I should not have flipped his card.
Can I ask you a question about that too at the end? Is that because William was covering up, and this is something really, really interesting about what happened at the end? When you were saying at the end, here, I'm going to play one last clip.
And now Jdogg turns a card over.
Okay, so you're saying that's what was agreed on. That's 100% what was agreed on. Is that the floor asking you that's 100% what is agreed on? And did the floor give you permission to flip over his card?
The floor did not give me permission to flip over the card. The floor, this all happened really quickly. And what they said is, oh, that's a 1-round penalty.
The floor didn't give you permission to flip over his card? I get to say, listen to me.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised by that? I mean, you think the floor said
that's what I took away. I'm surprised. Here's what I'm surprised by, and I'm not even on the issue of you right now. I'm surprised that with the floor standing there, you turned over his card without permission, and they didn't kill your hand.
I said, okay, and I think maybe it's part of the audio. I kind of indicated and stated that I was going to do it. And I'm like, well, if it's only a 1-round penalty, which is what you're giving him, look, that's where, again, I don't have any excuse for that. I apologize. I don't like it. I saw Josh the other day. We shook hands, we talked a little bit about it, and then we were going to catch up later that night, and then he left early. So I still intend to catch up with him this week, and I'll talk to him privately about, how he feels about this and making this right between he and I. But generally speaking, look, I will go on record for saying I behaved poorly. I don't like how I did this. Like, for me, poker is about, and going and playing every week is about having fun, having a couple of beers, hanging out with people, playing a game that I enjoy playing. Like, my mantra with poker is like, lately it's been like, hey, let's make poker fun again. Everyone's like boring and GTO and all this stuff. And I just want to have fun when I go play.
I'm just amazed. Here's the thing, so I understand your side of it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but the more amazing thing that has actually come out here at the end. Now, I think what you're saying is that I never would have done this deal if this was not what the deal was. I thought that he understood it. I feel like it is giving away information, showing one of my cards. Now, personally, I disagree with you on that, Jdogg. I never said that you felt that it was giving away that he was gaining some information.
No, I mean he's already his action's already complete. I never stated that me showing it's giving away information. It was on a live stream.
I don't understand. So if him turning over your card, I wasn't even going to get on your topic here on you, Jdogg, but if him turning over your card isn't giving away any information and the deal is unclear, how do you get to turn over his card if it's not information?
Bart, you have seen the cards. You know the cards. You're watching this as a Monday morning quarterback, and so is everyone else, seeing the cards. What if he had ace-4 of hearts and he negotiated the deal and then he thought, oh, you have a heart, I'm not saying he gained any information, but again, I stated twice, you show one, I'll show one. He went and flipped a card without doing that. Right. So I felt very wronged in the moment. I feel like, hey, we had an agreement.
And that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to look at your perspective, but I think something more important has come out of this that actually might not even involve you. I am absolutely shocked because I was going to sort of say that maybe people have been like off on the floor men on this, and that maybe, in the heat of the moment, it was a tough decision for him. But I am shocked And it's got nothing to do with you, Jdogg, here in this instance. I am shocked that they let you turn over his card and gave you the pot. Did you agree with me on that, though?
So look,
I'm not even talking about you, what you did. I'm just saying that from the floor's perspective.
I asked, so I clarified in the, again, please, let's not lose sight of the fact that I am acknowledging I handled this poorly. I regret it. It's embarrassing. I don't like how I whined about it. I regret flipping his card. So I'm sorry. Like, I wish I wouldn't have done it. I've never done anything like this in 20 years. Like, you know, I got caught up in the moment and feeling like, oh my gosh, you reneged on this deal. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. And I took matters into my own hands and I bulldozed the situation. Apologize for that. Okay. I also don't think the floor is to blame. They came over. Other people were weighing in. There was a lot of commotion. They stated that he was going to have a 1-round penalty. I'm like, so it's only a 1-round penalty? I'm like, well, then I'm going to flip one of his cards. Everyone was just kind of silent and looked at me. No, you know, but I have a hard time. Like, look, I really, really like the staff at TCH. I feel like this, you know, everyone was sort of put on the spot here. And so I feel like it's a little unfair to say that they.
Well, I just that's I mean, all that stuff is fine and good, and the floor can be under a lot of like pressure. And again, I'm not even taking exception to some of the things that you've said where you felt like you were wrong. I mean, personally, I disagree with you on it. I think
I don't know how you disagree with that. Could you articulate a little more clearly why you disagree? I stated twice. You at least heard once.
I disagree with you that the whole situation because it seems like it's clear that Josh did not think this is what the deal was. So if I were you, I would realize that him turning over one of my cards doesn't affect anything. But if I turn over one of his cards, I can call off when he doesn't have a heart. And that's exactly what happened.
I didn't expect him not to. Okay, that's fair. I was shocked, quite honestly. I really that's a true statement. I had convinced my I know all the chat pros
the problem
here
that people have, Jdogg, with or Jason, with this whole entire thing is that I think most people are kind of looking at this from what I just said, where the deal is unclear. He turned over one of your cards where you obviously gave him, permission to. Obviously, you thought you were going to be able to turn over one of his cards. He didn't think that. Now let's take a step back and look at what information has been given out. And how would this hand play out? And this is why I'm so shocked by TCH, where, well, I thought that they gave you permission to turn over the card, which I thought was a terrible ruling. But now I'm hearing that they just sort of let you turn over the card, which is just flabbergasting to me.
I mean,
No,
I was here to discuss you on this, not whether TCH handled it appropriately or not. But once again, this is now the third time I'll state it. I don't think I handled it right. I just regret it. I regret how it unfolded. And I certainly regret taking matters into my own hands and deciding that, you're only going to give a 1-round penalty to people that flip cards. Like, fine, I'll flip a card. That was really bad behavior. I regret it.
Do you also understand the exception that I take with sort of, and what I said in the video was playing sort of the victim angle, because I think that you said he can't just flip over my cards.
I regret, Bart.
Okay.
Yes, I regret that now. Like, in looking back, having a chance to reflect, digest this, watch the video a number of times, talk to some people about it. Yeah, of course I regretted it. It was whiny. It was, it's embarrassing. I don't like it. I really, truly regret it, and I wish I could redo it, and I can't. But here's what I'm here to say: I behaved poorly. I regret it. I really do, and I'm sorry for that. And I'll apologize to others. I've already told Josh.
I appreciate you.
Look, my point is, I didn't angle it. Like, to state that it was some sort of intentional angle, I felt wronged in the moment and felt like, yes, looking back and now watching it, 50 times. Sure, I can see how maybe the deal was unclear, but I think we got to put some burden on Josh too to just decide to flip a card before he was clear on the terms.
I mean, the burden that I would put on Josh personally is what I said in the video, in the sense that if I were in Josh's spot, now obviously I wouldn't do this type of thing, Jdogg. I mean, I've been playing for 15 years, but if I were in Josh's spot, I would have told the floor exactly. He didn't really articulate what went on, and if I was in that spot and the floor didn't give you permission to turn over my card, and you did, and you were able to call with a backdoor flush, I would have scream bloody fucking hell. And of course, I've got a social media presence. I would, and I don't out. I've never like outed anybody on social media like ever, but I would have been like, "This is ridiculous." If I was in Josh's spot, and again, it doesn't even have anything to do with you personally. I think this is. I'm not trying to pile onto you, but I just can't imagine that was allowed to happen. I mean, I know you said you've sort of admitted that you probably shouldn't have done it, but I just can't imagine it was allowed to happen with the floor right there. You know.
Yeah, I understand your perspective on that. Again, I sort of, took matters into my own hands a bit because I felt like Josh didn't hold
I
up
understand.
his end of the bargain
Mm-hmm.
that I
No,
had stated
I
twice,
understand.
And so, yeah, I got sued, one, yeah, I like to play poker to have fun, you know, talk. I'd like to think, I'm a fun guy to have at the table generally. I certainly didn't exhibit that, in this particular 10 minutes, right? But generally, I think it's true that I am. Like, so I do. I hate that it went down this way, but it's more complicated. And now seeing the cards, like, it's
I
just,
mean, I think it's inevitable.
it's not as black and white, I think, as everyone
Inevitably,
has
it's up
tried
to
to
you
make it.
whether you
But
want to do something with, Josh or something. The funniest thing is, from a step back, I just maybe this doesn't have any relevance to it. This is outside of it. I think you would have called anyways. You made a backdoor flush.
I would have. So here's the thing, but that there is relevance to that actually, because yes, I was thinking through it, and I had to take a moment when he jams. And again, having some history with him and knowing how he plays, and I know everyone's like, "Oh, you're such a nit snap call." Well, okay. When he calls 500 again, like, what draws can he have? I already have
Mm-hmm.
8-9. I'm not putting him on 8-9. Like, so whatever. Everyone can have their opinion about how I played it, but I really did think he had 4-5 of hearts or ace-x of hearts. Like, and I do think that is, relevant
Okay.
to this situation. I mean, again, we're seeing the cards. We know he had two black cards.
No.
Well, I didn't know that, and I felt like he was maybe angling me in the moment, and then decided, oh, I'm going to renege because I don't want him to pick the
Well,
ace of hearts and not
I
pay me
have
off.
heard the
So
argument.
yeah,
I
see,
have heard the
just
argument from
okay.
some people. You haven't made it, but I can maybe get. I think it was in a YouTube comment where someone said, "Well, Josh knew what he was doing, and then when he saw that you had a heart, he decided not that he wasn't going to show one of his cards. That he somehow knew." In that whole sense. Now, I don't agree with that. I think that the agreement was unclear, but that is an argument that he was going to turn over one of his cards, but then when he saw that you had a heart, he decided not to.
Yeah, look, but I think what you've stated now for, I think, the fourth time is that it was unclear. And so he shouldn't have flipped it until he made certain, hey, I'm going to flip this, but I'm not necessarily showing you one, because I did state twice, Josh,
I
one for
understand
one.
I understand that you stated it, but from my perspective and from a lot of perspective, and this is why I think that a lot of people think that you angled is that they're not sort of equal actions. The fact that he, doesn't think that he agreed.
But Bart, if he had ace four of hearts, you wouldn't say that. And I didn't know what he had. So you're saying it seeing the cards. If he had ace four of hearts, which he could have had, then you can't state that. So that's not fair. That's only fair to say
It's got
because you're
nothing,
seeing the cards.
Jdogg,
But in
it's
the
got nothing
moment
to
when
do with
both,
the cards. It's got something to do with the fact that he's already all in. The action is complete.
he has something to gain from it if he agreed and then is afraid that I have a 50-50 chance of that. Bart, you're wrong about that. Okay. You're absolutely wrong. If he has ace four
Okay.
of hearts or ace X of hearts, and he's concerned that I'm going to then pick I have a 50-50 shot, right? There's two cards there, 50-50. So he's got a 50% risk of me flipping the ace
No,
of
but what
hearts.
I'm saying is that just the act of him turning your card over after he's all in, how does that affect anything? How does that affect that's the biggest issue that I have, because he's already all in.
Agreed. Him seeing it doesn't affect
Right.
my decision.
Okay.
Of course, that's clear.
Now does you
But
seeing
again, when I
now
state
if you
twice,
see
one
one
for
of his
one, and
cards,
then
does that
he
affect your
decides,
decision? Now? And that's the issue, Josh.
look, I mean, so okay, I'm looking back on this, it's now whatever it is, 2 weeks ago. So it's difficult. I've had lots of time to process and think about it and reflect. And again, like most of those reflections are, I wish I would have handled this differently. Like I regret it and I apologize. Like, does it change anything if I see one of his cards? I don't know. Look, unless I flip the ace of hearts, I'm not folding. And even then I don't know that I'm folding. So the outcome is probably the same. Again, I would have probably taken, I'm not someone, again, if you ask people that play with me, that takes a ton of time and hands. In this particular situation with that particular player who I played with, Josh, I was like, wow, this is an interesting jam. I can't put him on a draw other than hearts. What does he have? So I only processed it for 40 seconds before he first started talking to me saying, you're making me nervous. Well, at that point, then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to listen to you and like try to gain some more information if you're willing to cough it up. And then he starts talking about, well, how about we show some cards? Well, I'm going to take whatever information I can get if he's willing to offer. I didn't ask for it and I didn't initiate it. And I think that's important here too. Like if I was angling him, I would have been like, hey, you know, I did not angle him. I behaved poorly. I don't like how I bulldozed the situation. I didn't angle him.
Well,
because I expected to flip over, you know, I didn't know what to expect, but I thought I was going to see a heart. And then the more he didn't want to show, the more, whether it was right or wrong in the moment, now I can look back and like reflect on it with some clarity. But like at the time I thought, oh, he for sure has two hearts. Like, is it 4-5 or ace X?
Well,
like,
like I said, I appreciate you reaching out, and I hope that you think that I've been fair with you and that you've been able to see, you know, your side of the story. I mean, obviously I have my opinion, other people have their opinions, but I'm glad that you came and told your side to it, and I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, look, so final comment on it is I will talk to Josh. I expect to see him this week. I will work out an agreement with him. Like, you know, look, I want to be fair to him. Like I said, I'm not in poker to make a lot of money. You know, like that's not the
right. It's
that's not the goal for me in
right?
playing cards. So I'll make it right with him. It's recreation. I just want to have fun. I'll make it right with Josh. Okay. And other than that, like I said, I don't think I angled him. I think I behaved poorly. I think a bad decision making in the spur of the moment when I felt like he reneged on something. And so, yeah, I regret how I handled it.
All right.
And
Thank you very much, Jason, for calling in and telling your side to it. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on board.
All right. Well, I think that interview did not disappoint. Again, I don't really go, I'm glad that Jdogg called in. I don't really come away from it really sort of thinking any differently. I mean, I have my opinion. I think obviously he feels badly about the way that he acted, and I think he would agree with some of the things that I pointed out in terms of, you know, and that's what I had sort of said, the victim angle. I mean, that was really the biggest issue that I had with that was that he sort of made it look like, oh my God, this guy turned over my card when in fact he gave permission. And then it's just, from my perspective, it's not equal. Again, just to, you know, to sum it up, to wrap it up, that, you know, when Josh is all in, him turning over one of Jdogg's cards is nowhere in the same universe now as if Jdogg then got to turn over Josh's card because the action's on Jdogg. And that's if the agreement was unclear, which we sort of came to a consensus that it was unclear. Or at least Josh didn't think that that was what the agreement was. So I don't really come away from that much being any different. It seems like Jdogg is sort of lamenting and he apologizes for the way that he acted. And he thinks, it sounds to me like he might do something with Josh or do something for Josh now looking back at it. So, you know, I have to say that he stand up in that way. It doesn't seem like he thinks he's angling. Obviously, a lot of other people think differently. But again, I think the most amazing part of that whole thing is the fact that he was just able to turn Josh's card over and they let the sort of hand play out. I mean, I'm not a foreman, but I would think that that would be, you know, this whole situation's a big clusterfuck. I think we all acknowledge that, but I would think that that action of turning over a card without permission in itself should be the dead hand. But the whole thing was pretty gnarly. Oh, I want to make an announcement too. I will be commentating the big game at the Lodge on Saturday, which I believe Doug Polk is going to be playing in. I talked to Seriously Serious. Looking forward to it. I've never commentated on the Lodge, not far from my house. So that's their big game. Of course, this big meetup at the Lodge going on the whole week with Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen. But that should be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you guys. I mean, I haven't played in probably a month and a half since my little baby was born. So looking forward to getting out there, and I'll probably go in there and maybe play for sort of a whole day on Saturday. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to this channel down below. And to get more live cash game no limit training, head over to crushlivepoker.com and you can use the code YTA400 to get the first 30 days for free.